Hey there, everybody. It's Pastor Jeff, and welcome to week 3 of Pastor's Pulse, my take on what's going on in our world today. Hey, it's great to have each one of you along with us today. And just to give you a brief update, I've passed the 6-week mark, my halfway to a 12-week rehabilitation from my recent heart attack and triple bypass open heart surgery. And just to let you know, I'm alive and well, doing great, feeling stronger every day, and doctors are very pleased with my progress. But today's topic is a question. Where is God? I'm sure we've all asked that question at various times in our lives. And here we are near the end of 2020, one of the worst years of most of our lives. We've been living through a worldwide pandemic, experiencing physical separation from our family and friends and coworkers, and even experiencing spiritual separation from our church families. The world seems to be spinning out of control, and maybe even worse, our country seems to be headed in a dark direction. I'll have more to say about that next week. Maybe your life seems to be a bit uncertain and a bit chaotic. And the question we all ask is, where is God in the midst of all of this crisis? Has God just disappeared? Has he gone away? Has he maybe gotten frustrated with the whole situation and just thrown his hands up in the air in disgust? Well, I don't know, but let's talk about that. And maybe to help us understand and relate, let me talk a moment about the Old Testament story of Joseph from the book of Genesis and focused in chapters 37 through chapter 50. We hear the story of a young man who was the favorite son in a family of 12 brothers. He was a dreamer, a guy who had lots of dreams and hopes and aspirations for his future. Future looked really bright for this young man. But things turned badly for him as his jealous brothers conspired together to kill him, to throw him in the bottom of a deep pit to just allow him to die there. And I'm sure at some point in the midst of that pit, he asked himself the very same question, where is God? And then brothers decided to make a buck, and so they decided to instead sell him off to slave traders who took him off to a foreign country, to Egypt. And maybe along the way he was asking himself that same question, where is God? Well, he got to Egypt, and the slave traders sold him off to a prominent family where he had a decent job and hopeful aspects and prospects. But there he was accused of rape by the boss's wife, and then he was thrown into prison. And I'm sure at that point he must have asked himself that question, where is God? Well, in prison he made a couple of friends who, when they got released, promised to put in a good word for him and help him get out. But then they soon forgot all about him. And I'm sure in the course of that time, Joseph asked himself, where is God? Well, he spent 2 long years in that prison cell. But one day the king called for his release. You see, the king had a dream, and he heard that Joseph could interpret the dreams. And so he asked for Joseph to come, and Joseph did. And Joseph explained, with the help of God's wisdom, the king's dream. And as a result, he was rewarded with a high position. In fact, he was given the privilege of managing the entire kingdom. Well, lo and behold, Joseph's family would soon come to Egypt as a result of a worldwide famine. They came begging for food, and guess what? They came to Joseph, not knowing who he was because they'd assumed him long dead. But Joseph confronted them and revealed himself. And in Genesis chapter 50 and verse 20, Joseph puts it this way. to his family. He says, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish his purpose." You see, what Joseph finally realized is that God was there all along, working out his will and his purpose for Joseph's good. Reminds me of the scripture from Romans 8, verse 28, which tells us, "We know that in all things, at all times, that God is working for the good of those who love him and who are called according to his purpose." Y'all remember the poem Footprints, the story of a young man who had a dream one night that he was previewing the long trail of his life with the Lord, and he noticed that the trail of his life led him through valleys and over mountains and along smooth paths. But he noticed along the way that in, well, the really difficult places, there only appeared to be one set of footprints. To which he finally inquired of the Lord. He said, "How, Lord, could you have abandoned me in the valleys and over the rugged mountains?" To which the Lord replied, "You see, the times you saw only one set of footprints, that's when I carried you." Hebrews 13, verse 5 and 6 says, "God has said, 'Never will I leave you, never will I forsake you.' So we can say with confidence, 'The Lord is my helper, I will not be afraid.'" And so let me encourage you today, when you begin to think that God's disappeared, that God's vanished, when you begin to ask yourself the question, where is God in the midst of the chaos of my life? Simply remember these three things. Keep walking in faith. Keep working out his purpose in your life. And when you just can't go on, let him carry you. God bless. Have a good week. And we'll see you next time on Pastor's Pulse.